Like most, the greatest majority of my character has been derived directly from the nature of my early childhood conditioning. And like many, in time, the nature of that conditioning left me probing for insights into why I am the way I am and the exact role that I play in the reality that I experience. And as I poured through Western psychology and Eastern philosophy, looking for answers to the same questions that man has been asking since before time everlasting, one practice, more so than any other, continued to resurface as a cornerstone of living a self-realized and conscious lifestyle: meditation. Now, I had tried meditation before, and to put it mildly, it hadn't stuck. In the beginning, I struggled to sit idly for even 5 minutes at a time, and trying to visualize my proverbial happy place didn't exactly inspire the stillness of mind one might hope for when taking on such an endeavor. For the most part, I found that I desired to be perceived as someone who meditated more than I wanted to be someone who actually practiced meditation. But still, as has become a defining trend in my short life, I chose to proceed forward as if it was my only real option. And if it was 5 minutes of stillness that seemed to push me to my internal limits, well then 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week seemed like the perfect place to start. I didn't know if I should start by listening to meditation tracks, or by visualizing, or by simply sitting in place with my eyes closed and focusing on my breathing. But knowing that imperfect action beats inaction any day of the week, I just got started. I got started with a clear-eyed, realistic goal of 5 minutes a day for 5 days straight. And the next week, I aimed for 6 minutes a day, and the next 7. Each week, I increased my goal by one single minute, and before I knew it, I found myself sitting with myself for 20 and then 30 minutes at a time. Soon my exploration into meditation became as much a cornerstone of my self-love practice as the disciplines I'd been diving headfirst into for years. As more time passed, I practiced, I studied, I pushed myself to stretch beyond those places I once perceived to be my boundary. Now, I'm proud to say that I've increased my meditation practice to around an hour a day, every day of the week, most weeks out of the year. That said, it really isn't about how much you meditate or for how long. It's ultimately about how deep you go. And after all the hours and all the work, if there's one thing that I can genuinely say I've learned, it's just how much I struggle, even now today, to separate myself from my thoughts and to simply just be. Still, what growth has occurred is often apparent, if not to me, then to those around me. And at the very least, there are a few ideals that I've learned to meditate on each day that are directly responsible for a shift in the way I perceive myself and the universe I experience. Now, before moving forward, I should say that each of these insights has been passed down through the ages by one prophet, sage, wise man, or another, and in that are in no way, shape, or form original to me. Once more, each of these guidelines is just that, a guideline, an ideal. It's not about living them to perfection, it's about keeping them in mind as we face decisions in our effort to realize our intended place in the cosmos. There are, of course, other great pieces of wisdom that could be included in such a list, and there are those who would argue that you could get by well with much less. But today, in the right here and right now, these are mine. First, every day is a new life, and in that, I will take life one day at a time. As an entrepreneur, an artist, and a man living in such times as these, I've always found it to be one of the great catch-22s of life, to try and begin each new endeavor with an end in mind, while also taking each endeavor one day at a time. In fact, one could argue that keeping our thoughts in the present day, much less in the present moment, goes against our very prehistoric human nature. For thousands of years, our ability to survive as Homo sapiens hinged on our ability to anticipate and recognize the hidden dangers that lurked around each and every corner. Even today, we tend to wake up in the wee hours of the morning and spiral about our greatest fears we have in life, or even just the greatest fears we have of the coming day. Mankind will always be willing to do more to flee from pain than to run toward pleasure, because in our earliest hours, if we remembered where we found food the previous day, great. But remembering how we avoided becoming food the previous day was always more imperative to our immediate survival. After all, a man can go days without food or water, but he can't survive one single instance of being eaten. Still, thousands of years later, in times when we hardly have to leave our home to provide for ourselves and we find ourselves comfortably at the top of the food chain, we're left with the tendencies developed by our early cave-dwelling brothers and sisters. And after all of human existence, the fact remains that we have never and will never be able to directly influence what happens in the future, and most of the scenarios that we so vividly imagine in our mind will never come to pass. As Mark Twain famously said, "I've been through a lot of terrible things in my life, and some of them actually happened." You see, living in fear of our future distracts us from the present, which is where we make the decisions that inevitably create the quality of life we experience further down the road. So while looking to the future through our mind's eye is what comes most naturally, living in the here and now is not only what brings our soul its greatest sense of peace, it's also fundamentally where we need to spend most of our time if we are to recognize the opportunities, the inspirations, and the people that walk into our lives that could change what little time we have for the better. So for the sake of our own peace and for the sake of our long-term well-being, we must live one day at a time, knowing that each day is the day that could change everything. Hey y'all, I just wanted to thank you for acknowledging the content that I spend so much time, energy, and money creating. If you like what you saw, please comment, like, share, subscribe, and follow. And stay tuned because there's plenty more on the way. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And until next time, tip your servers, forgive your parents, spread love, and do your own damn thing, y'all. Go in peace.